Hello, Hayes. I'm a longtime follower and first-time emailer. One of the things that has always drawn me to your platform, aside from your nuance and self-awareness, thank you, is your dream of being a writer. I share that dream. I majored in screenwriting in college, and now at 26, I have found success as a copywriter in advertising, in healthcare advertising. As you can imagine, healthcare copywriting has about as much flavor as LaCroix. In many ways, I'm grateful. I do like my job, at least most of the time. My career has been fast-tracked. I have a very high title for my age, work reasonable hours, and I'm paid competitively. And at the end of the day, I do get paid to write. Just not to write the things that truly excite me. I still daydream of writing screenplays, and even 4 years in the post-grad working world has made that dream feel smaller, like it's collecting dust on the shelf. 2 weeks ago, I moved to London from the US and moved in with my partner. I'm on a 2-year visa that's not tied to any employment, though I can work locally. Hoping to keep me on staff, my company offered me a full-time freelance role. I told them I would commit to 40 hours in Eastern Time for the first month, under the agreement that we would reassess afterwards. In the 2.5 years I've been with this company, they've invested in me tremendously. Working remotely for them as a freelancer in London gives me flexibility and financial freedom. But even 2 weeks in, the hours are isolating. I find that the parts I liked most about my job, regularly coming to an office and collaborating creatively, are greatly diminished by my move. I have a deep feeling that if I really want to try and make it as a writer, now is the time. For the first time since joining the workforce, I have the flexibility to set my own hours. I could tell my company that I want to work 20 hours and focus the other 20 on screenwriting. I could leave my job completely for screenwriting and work a part-time local job for extra cash. My endlessly supportive partner has even offered to completely support me financially if I want to write creatively full-time. The world is truly my oyster. I should be seizing this opportunity, but honestly, I feel totally frozen. I worry about adjusting to a much smaller salary after making good money. I'm afraid of letting down the managers at my company who have truly championed me. I worry about the dynamic of being financially dependent on my boyfriend. Most of all, after writing taglines and emails for 4 years, I'm scared that the spark and gift I had before will no longer be there when I reach for it. In high school and college, I created simply for the joy of creation. Not even things I was good at. I wrote songs, poetry, painted, took photographs. I miss that creative freedom, and I want to rediscover myself as a writer. Hayes, I really want to lean into this experience. Can you help me take the first step? Yours, picking up the pen. This letter is really poking at me today. This is making me, I feel myself I feel my emotions stirring, and I think that's because I myself am having a very hard day. I'm having a hard week as a writer, which is the truth. Picking up the pen. I've wanted to be a writer ever since I was very little. And at 32, the times that I have felt like a writer were not when I, quit my full-time job to start consulting and writing my novel on the side. It was not when I quit my consulting job to focus on writing and content creation full-time. It was not when I started to build an audience for my writing and for my work. It was not when I got literary agents. The times that I have felt like a writer in a sustaining way have been alone, when no one is congratulating me and nobody is applauding me and nobody is reading what I'm writing. The times I have felt like a writer are when I am disciplined in the act of sitting down to write something and to improve the craft of writing, my craft of writing, working on a project. And that doesn't mean that those exciting moments I mentioned, I felt like a writer maybe briefly. They felt really exciting, but it wasn't like that sustained. None of those experiences gave me that feeling that I've been longing for, which is believing that I'm a writer. I say that because I think that you can be the thing you want to be. I think you already are. And quitting your job is not going to be the thing that makes you believe in who you are. It isn't. Quitting your job and freeing up your time can give you exactly that. It can give you more time, though it also might not. Like with all the free time and with the increased pressure about money, you might feel even more frozen. And I don't point that out to make you feel like, I don't say that to make you feel even more immobilized in the face of this decision. But I think it's really, really important to not glamorize the act of pursuing your dreams. And I don't think that pursuing your dreams, seizing the moment, has to equal giving up stability. I've noticed a little bit, and I've probably done this myself too, how sometimes when people who have creative success, somebody that you look up to, when they talk about their creative career, I feel like I often hear people say like, I just took a risk on my creativity and like that was the best thing I did. And now look at this big, beautiful career I have. And those same people often either don't talk about the other side, how hard it is, or maybe they don't feel that. I don't trust those people. Those aren't people who I tend to connect with or vibe with. Those are the same people I think that sometimes use their like accomplishments and their success as a way to intentionally or not put other people down. But I feel like that's a very common narrative. Like the thing that made me successful, if I never took that chance, if I never decided, oh, I don't want the boring office job and I'm going to go all in on my creativity, that's why I'm successful. I just don't think that that's what you have to do. You have a really, I agree with you that there is a moment in front of you right now, but the moment, I don't think the moment is here because you moved to London and your company's offering you flexibility. I think the moment is here. I think the moment is here because your creativity is speaking to you and you're feeling called more than ever to start to tend to that creative muscle again. See the difference? Like, I don't think you have to capitalize on this moment because you're moving to London and because you have these free hours. I think you have to capitalize on this moment because you're feeling the momentum and you're dormant. Like a creative person, whether you're a writer, you're a painter, you're an artist, maybe you don't make anything with your hands, but you're a creative thinker. You have creative hobbies. Like you can only let your creativity be dormant for so long. And I think we all go through periods where where we're not tending to our creativity, but it will catch up with you and yours has caught up with you and it's now trying to demand your attention. And if you ignore it again, it will die again and it might not come back. We have to tend to our creativity. And I think that it's speaking to you like you must respond. You must respond. But responding does not need to mean letting go, dropping everything. In fact, because the reality is when you start writing again or painting or whatever it is you do, it's going to feel a little awkward. You're not going to feel very good at it right away. Probably, unless you're like a prodigy and you can, not write for 3 years and then sit down at the page and be writing perfectly formed scenes. Assuming that you are human, mere mortal like the rest of us, it's going to feel hard. Even when I'm writing every day, it still takes me about an hour every morning when I sit down to even begin to get into a swing of things where I feel like I'm being productive. It's going to take you some time. And I think that if you take this big leap, you might feel alarmed at how hard it feels. And I wonder if getting started while you still have some security is a good thing. The thing about part-time work, and I'm getting very logistical now, part-time work always ends up being more, part-time work always ends up being more, I think, from what I've heard, what I hear from friends and in my experience. Like when I was working freelance, it took me a long time to figure out how to actually like structure my contracts so that I was getting paid for the right amount of work. I can't remember, I think I did a couple of different things. With some clients, I billed hourly. Other clients, I kind of knew around how much time something would how much time it would take me to do something. And then plus my skill, I would give them like a flat rate and it would usually take me a little less than I told them, but I always felt that that was fair. it's tricky saying I'll work, but it's tricky going from working full time to being like, actually, we're just going to do part time now. Like friends of mine who, after having kids, have gone back to work full part time have definitely struggled with that. Like they're still working 40 hours, 35 hours. But, some people who work 40-hour weeks only work 35 hours, let's be honest. And that's just something I sort of would really frustrate me if I was working a full-time job, had been there for a long time, said I was going to go to 20 hours and then still worked more but wasn't getting paid. That to me is tricky. And your partner offering to support you, I think, what do I think about that? That detail, that's one of those details that's like everybody will have a different reaction to that. You might have even as an individual person who's receiving that generous offer will have different reactions to that. So much of what you should do is dependent on your individual financial statuses, how much money you have personally, how much money they have personally, what your dynamic is like. If you are with somebody who would hold that above your head, I would never suggest taking money from another person. There are plenty of people in my life I shouldn't say plenty of people. I think it's smart to think long and hard about accepting money from other people. And I know that there are, myself included, so many people who are only able to start their business, to take a leap, to pursue a different path because of the financial and emotional and all the other forms of support, but yes, financial support of the person they spend their life with or of a family member and it's just like such a hard topic that I don't know the answer to. Sometimes it's like if you have, it's hard to believe sometimes that a person could have access to money that isn't backhanded isn't the right word. What's the word I'm looking for? That doesn't come with strings attached. Like it's hard to imagine that sometimes if you are a person with family members or in a relationship where you do have access to money, but it comes with strings attached. It's hard to imagine that other people could be selfless, could be genuine, or could have so much money that it's not an issue. I don't know what your situation is. I think it's wise to, my advice to you would be to take comfort in the fact that you have a partner who wants to support you and has offered to help create a certain lifestyle for you should you want it. But before you do that, I would get started writing your screenplay. I would not quit the job, take the money, take the support, and hope that this is actually what I want. Because there's a chance, you said one of your fears is like, will it be gone? I don't think it will be gone. If being a writer is like a true part of your identity, if you really want it enough and it is truly who you are, it's going to feel hard to get started, but it'll still be there. There is, however, a chance that it's only, that your dream of being a writer is just a dream. It's just like a fantasy you've created in your head. And in your brain, it's like, oh, being a writer is this romantic, glorified, like you're thinking of the utopia version of it rather than the reality of it. I have definitely done that. I certainly did that with aspects of like being a creator. Like in the 2.5 years that I've been you can call me whatever you want to call me. I identify as a writer and I guess podcast host now more than I identify personally as a creator. And this moment, I don't know if I felt that way a little while ago. I romanticized for sure parts of being a creator, thoughts of like being a long form video maker. And there were times when I said that that's what I wanted to be without actually having done the work of trying to do it yet. And then I was sort of horrified to see that there were parts of it that didn't feel good and sustainable to me. But you know what has never left me in these whole 2.5 years that I've been, going all in on my writing career? Being a writer. Like the work of writing has never felt it's felt painful and challenging for me. And I really struggled with my project this morning and have gone into Brian's office many times asking for a hug, saying I'm not sure I can do it. But it has always been motivating for me. It has always felt right. And it is the one thing that like sets me, how do I say this? Even in my like darkest moments in the last couple of years, being able to return to my writing projects has been the thing that has like saved me and has pulled me out of really just some numbing moments. Making a video did not do that. Like, it didn't. And for some people, making a video would do that. But for me, it was working in private on the thing that I'm working on. And I think you owe it to yourself. And I knew that even before I started Hello Hayes, because when I was working my full-time job, the thing that was keeping me sane was working on my novels in the morning, working on my novel in the morning and at night and on the weekend. And I think you owe it to yourself to keep some stability while you see how that feels. Again, I don't think working on your screenplay is going to feel easy, and it might suck. Like the screenplay you write and your work on it every day might suck, but it's not about how good it is. It's about how you feel about yourself when you're sitting down and doing it. Like, that's what you deserve. You deserve to get back into the act of creating stuff and to notice how it makes you feel about yourself. How does it make you feel about your confidence? Generally, even if I think I'm a bad writer, because there are always moments where I'm like, I'm just not, I think I picked this letter today because I am struggling this week with my work. Like, I am having moments today where I'm like, maybe I don't have the skill to do what I'm trying to do. Maybe I'm not, that's going to make me cry. Maybe I don't have the skill to pull this off. So it's so interesting. It's interesting to me, though, and what makes me feel confident that I am, in fact, a writer, is that lack of, that insecurity, that like fear that I'm not good enough to do this sits right next to the confidence of, it feels so right, though, when I'm sitting here and working on this and using my brain in this way. It feels so right. And at the end of every day, even if I didn't, succeed, even if I haven't written yet, like the next great American novel or memoir or whatever it is I'm working on, I'm really proud of myself for showing up. That's what being a writer is to me, is like giving myself the chance to be proud of myself every day. Yeah. And I want you to, your creativity is calling you. Like, that's all you have to do. You just need to show up and give yourself the chance to be proud. And that pride is not going to come from selling your screenplay or people telling you your work is great. The pride is really just going to come after a week of you showing up and honoring that voice. What else? I hear you about the hours feeling more isolating now that you are working East Coast while living in London. I think that there could be an opportunity for you to reframe the way you think about the role of your job, whereas before you needed the job, you needed your healthcare advertising job to feel social and like you needed it to feel fulfilling in some way because you weren't practicing your creativity outside of work. So you found that fulfillment in the social parts of the job and the friendships and the community. Amazing. Now though, maybe your job can fill a different source of, it can fulfill something different in your life, and it can just fill stability. And you don't need the community because actually you're going to be addressing a different bucket in your life, which is your creativity. And you might still feel sad that you don't have the community, and you might still feel lonely working this copywriting job, but you're willing to sacrifice that because of the stability it's going to give you while you start testing out your creativity again and you start seeing if this is something that you want to do. And then 6 months down the line, we can make another decision. But I wonder if the loneliness will feel a little bit more palatable if you start thinking of it just as, I'm literally just doing this to keep paying the bills so that I don't need to jump off the cliff all at once. I can climb down slowly. I think that's the best way to make decisions, is like to make them slowly. And the number one most important decision you have to make now is not, do I quit my job? Do I let my boyfriend support me? Do I, etc. It's the decision you have to make now is, what's the first thing I'm going to write? And you don't need to think yet about the job part of it. Like, take that off your plate. Getting started on your writing work is enough to focus on. And maybe that will help make this feel like you don't need to do something crazy to deserve the writing time. You don't need to do something crazy to make it feel worth it. Your gift, I know you're scared that your gift has left you, but that's not how gifts work. If you are a writer, which I believe that you are, and you believe that you are, you're an artist, you're a creative person, that never leaves you. And you know what's proof? That it's still calling to you even after you've had time, even after all this time away from it. Your gift is still there. Your gift has not left you. And I guess the only other, like the number one thing that I think is important to say as a person, like I recognize that some people might be listening to this thinking that I have figured it out. And maybe other people are rolling their eyes because they think I'm so far from figuring it out. But I have to imagine that I have to accept, like all of us, that we don't always see ourselves as other people see us. And I imagine that there are some people listening to this, watching to this, who think that I have figured out my creative career. And all I have to say, at least right now, is that the thing that you think is going to make you feel like you've made it is not always that thing. Quitting your job to focus on your creativity is not always all it's cracked out to be. It still might be wonderful, but there are still problems. You replace one problem with another. And the true inner work of seeing yourself as a creative person, the discipline that's required to practice your craft, whatever that is, you don't magically just start doing it because you've decided to take the leap and do it full time. It's sort of like how people say, this is quite the leap, but bear with me. Some people have kids because they want to fix they want to fix something in their relationship, and they think, oh, maybe the missing thing in my marriage was that we need another kid, or we need a kid in the first place. No, the problem is still going to be there after the kid is born. In fact, it's going to be magnified. My experience with much of the decisions I've made has been that. The insecurities I felt about myself as a creative person when I was working full-time jobs have only been magnified since, quote, taking the leap and putting my creativity first. I have also been given so many gifts, and I have such luck and privilege, and so many wonderful things have happened as a result of making that choice. But there are many routes to getting to where you want to be. And I don't know if you know where you want to be yet, because you haven't sat down to do the work in a really long time. Start doing that work. And I believe in you, I should also say. Like, I believe in you. I believe that nobody feels this strongly about writing their screenplay no one feels this strongly about it unless the calling is coming from like a true and good place. I believe in you. I believe that what you want will happen if you put in the work. But start putting in the work now. And you don't need to give your writing 30 hours a week in order to be a real writer. You can give it 20 minutes a day. 20 minutes a day would be tough for me because in 20 minutes I never accomplish anything. It takes me at least 20 minutes to even warm up, as I've said. But you don't need to give it so much time. It's less about the time you can dedicate, more about the intention and just the fact that you're showing up. All right, that's it for the letter. Thank you for picking up the pen. I'm excited to see how this goes for you. Please keep me posted. And now let's move on to the next part of our episode. I thought today's episode was a perfect segue to do the next part of our creativity Q&A. I've published part 1 and part 2, and this is the last and final part. You can go back and listen to those episodes. The first one was all about getting started, like how do you see yourself as a writer? And the second one was about the practice. And today is going to be about imposter syndrome, perfectionism, finding meaning in our work. Thank you to everybody who submitted questions. I'm really excited to talk about them. So the first question is, how do you deal with those feelings of somebody could or did make this better than I'm able to, or I don't know enough about this to do X, Y, or Z? I know these feelings will never go away, and we have to keep doing our thing despite them, but it can feel so paralyzing sometimes. Thank you for your support always. Oh, something I have felt insecure about this too before. Like, what could I possibly have to say? And I've been trying to remind myself that I do have a unique perspective. Now, how well I articulate it is another thing. But I have a unique perspective and a unique take on things because I have a unique brain. And you do too. I want you to give more credit to the unique way that you view the world. Every time I am courageous enough in real life to say what I'm thinking, to a friend, and I've tried to build my social life in a way as I've gotten older where I really surround myself with people who I'm more comfortable with to show my true thoughts. Like every time I do, it's not like I'm amazed at how smart I am. No, I'm not saying that. But every time I say what I'm really thinking and a kind person who I'm friends with reacts to me or responds to me, I grow more confident that I do have like I have a unique lens on things. That's why some people want to be my friend, because of the unique way I see things. It's the same reason I want to be other people's friends and why I go to certain people in my life for advice or to get their opinion on things, because they have a unique take. I want you to trust that you also have a unique take. And maybe a good exercise for this could be like asking friends or asking people who you feel like really see you, what do they think you're good at? Or like, why do they go to you for some things? I've had, my two friends in my writing group, like will often do that for each other. And it's been really valuable to me when those friends have shared with me, Alexandra, you're like something you're really good at is this. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that I do that, but now I can feel more confident because somebody I love and trust and respect has called it out for me. It's hard though. Like I feel it. I feel it all the time. And there are people who are better at things than I am. And there are people who have done things before. And I just you have to have kind of delusional trust in your brain. You have to have delusional trust in the fact that it's inherently unique because it's yours and nobody else is inside that brain. Does it get easier with time? I'm not sure if it gets easier, but I think your trust in yourself will grow. And with it, your confidence. The note about, I don't know enough about this, that can be very valid sometimes, like not speaking on things that you don't know anything about, making appropriate caveats when the caveats are necessary, as we talked about last week, and in the week before. But we can always learn. I think something that gives me comfort, is it that it gives me comfort? It gives me like moral clarity, is that I don't, and I might get this wrong sometimes, but I don't claim to be an expert on anything. Like there was once when I was doing an interview, I did an interview on Hello Sunshine podcast, and it was a great experience. And one of the interviewers has become a friend of mine. But I remember I was doing the prep, and like they were going to position me as like a friendship advice expert. And I was like, no. Like, that's not how I see myself. I'm not an expert. Like, I'm a writer. I write an advice column, but it's not my expertise. It's just my perspective. And I don't think that's a cop-out. I think that's like a really important distinction. I'm not an expert in anything other than maybe being an expert in like my craft and my commitment to learning and being better. Like you are here to learn, and whatever it is you're setting out to do, raise your hand and firmly own the fact that you are learning and always getting better at it. There are some experts, like there are people who are experts in things and should say that they are an expert. I don't think I'm one of them. And it's okay to not be an expert. That would be so boring if the only people who were allowed to make things were experts in it. And it also wouldn't like promote a growth mindset. It's okay to always be learning. Now, if you're always learning, it also means admitting when you don't know something or when you get something wrong. And that's what I think about that. Someone else asked, how do you know when it's time to stop tweaking your work and publish it? Gosh, there's so many ways to answer that. I think it depends on what it is. Some things are meant to be made fast and shared fast, and you get fast feedback. Other things, like there's a piece I wrote a couple of months ago about something that happened with Francis that I haven't published yet because I haven't really found the story yet. I wrote it very emotional, which I often will do. Like if something very intense has happened, I'll often write right away to make sure I capture the feelings and I remember everything. And that will be like my first draft. And I sit with it. And sometimes I think it's perfect when I write it. I'm like, I should just publish this right now. But I knew that this thing that I had written was important to me and that there was maybe a deeper message in there. And I hadn't found the deeper message yet. So I sat with it. And I came back 2 weeks later and I was like, oh, I'm glad I didn't publish this yet. There's some stuff in here that feels half-baked. There's some stuff in here that feels half-baked, or like some metaphors that aren't really working. And maybe this introduction isn't necessary. Come back to it 2 weeks later and I see new things. And I will return to that essay and bring it to its full potential, because I can see its full potential. Some things you work on are going to be bigger than others, and that's okay. There's other things I've written, I write them in 2 hours and then I send it because I've determined that that's the appropriate amount of time for this piece of work. I think you only learn that through practice. Like, you only learn how long something needs through practice and through getting it wrong sometimes. And at the end of the day, like, you can always keep tweaking something. I go back and I read some of the advice columns I published on my Substack, and I'm like, oh, I cringe the whole time I'm reading it. But I thought it was great then. And maybe people still read it now and think it's great. But I have grown as a writer since then. Thank God. We should always be growing. So you could always be endlessly tweaking. I think it's about knowing yourself. And does this thing you're working on require some emotional distance? I think that's true for fiction, nonfiction. It can be true for visual art. Like, does it require some distance? And have I given it distance yet? And though, I think when you're just getting started sharing your work, like when I first started making Hello Haze and sharing my work publicly, it was more important for me to regularly publish than it was for me to make it perfect. Since then, I definitely am a little bit more precious, and I could definitely be publishing more. But my priorities are elsewhere, whatever. That's a different topic. But in the beginning, the most important thing for me was regular publishing, and like being on a weekly schedule of sending a advice column newsletter every Thursday helped me stay on that schedule. And I think deadlines can be really helpful for that. Like, when do I keep tweaking versus when do I publish? If you have a deadline, you have a deadline and you meet that deadline. I take deadlines very seriously. So setting a deadline can be helpful. And if you are a writer, like, start a Substack. You don't need to promote it. You don't need to try to grow an email list. But I think having in your brain, like, I want to publish something once a week. I'm going to pick Wednesdays, and I'm going to be disciplined with that deadline. Have 3 of your friends sign up, whatever. It's more about building the practice. And I think that can help you with that. Like, do I tweak? Do I publish? Sometimes you just got to publish, and you need the deadline to get you there. How do you know when something is good without needing anyone else to proofread? Well, proofreading, there's like different types of reviewers. Proofreading is like, is this obnoxious of me to get into the minutia of what all these terms mean? A proofread is typically like someone reading it to see if there are any errors. An editor, like somebody to read to like figure out if you've actually said what you need to say and to give you real feedback, is different. All writers benefit from having readers. Readers give them feedback. But the more you learn to edit your own work and to read your own work like an editor, the better you will get at knowing when something is good. I'm getting there. I definitely know I've gotten so much better at knowing when something is good. I've gotten better at being able to identify problems in my own work. But I also am someone who really benefits from talking about my work with others. And I don't think that you need to go to other people to know. Maybe this is the important thing. We should not be aspiring to like needing other people to tell us our work is good. But I think it's great to confide in other people to try to make your work better. To know you need other people to help make the work better. And I think every creative person, the dream and what you deserve is to have creative collaborators, not even collaborators, but people in your creative community who are there to help you make your work better and who know how to bring out the best in you through their feedback. Not all feedback is created equal. I've learned that the hard way. Not all feedback is created equal. And I feel so lucky to have 2 friends in my writing group, Stephanie and Kate, who are great at giving feedback, but are also really great at working with me to give me the type of feedback and communicate the way that is best for me. I'll also say, though, that like it's okay for something not to be good. Like, you are allowed to share things that aren't good and haven't been proofread. You're allowed to just share things because you want to share it. it might not lead to, getting a book deal or getting an agent or having people love you for your work. But you're allowed to just share things for the sake of sharing them, whether they're good or bad. I want to create space for that. Not everything has to be good. Do you ever scrap whole ideas, or do you find a way? Another question is, do you ever scrap whole ideas, or do you find a way to rework them? Yes, I scrap whole ideas. The project that I've been working on the last couple of years, I've written let's say I've written 200 pages, and many of them have gotten scrapped. I think that scrapping ideas or scrapping parts of ideas is part of finding the right idea. It's all part of the process. And you never know how you're going to rework ideas. You never know how material is going to find its way back to you. There's a story I began to write many years ago. There was this guy in the dog park in New York City, and I had observed this man and thought he was so interesting, and he became a character in a short story I wrote. And I think about him all the time. There was one line I wrote about the way his shirt looked, and it's one of the favorite things. It's one of the favorite lines I've ever written, and it's not showing up anywhere in my work now, but I know where that, the 2,000 words of that short story are in my Google Docs, and maybe it'll appear one day. Everything you make matters. And even if you write something, and even if you make something and it doesn't go anywhere, it was a building block to get you where you need to be. And I think behind every great work we love, every book you've ever loved, every painting you've loved, every album, there was so much left on the cutting room floor. That's what makes it good. You can tell when someone publishes something and they haven't done any editing and they didn't write those, 40,000 extra words to figure out what the story actually was. You can tell. I think scrapping ideas and scrapping material is the sign. Being able to do that is what makes you a great creator. I think, a disciplined creator, at least. I think that's what leads to the best work. Or maybe that's just what I'm telling myself. Yes, I definitely scrap whole ideas. Someone asked, how do you stay true to yourself in what you write and share? There's so much noise, trends, over-polished content, sometimes AI-assisted, and endless pressure to perform in a certain way. Lately, I've been feeling like a lot of things are starting to sound the same. I find your content refreshing and was curious to learn about your perspective on this. Thank you. That's very kind. I feel that same pressure, and I've definitely tried. There are definitely seasons where I've tried to be more like other people or be more like everything else I've seen, and I don't feel that I have always fully been my authentic self. Being your authentic self and creating through your authentic voice is very hard. Being authentic to your creativity is not the same thing as being effortless. It takes effort to pull forth the authentic expression of yourself. It really does. And maybe that's part of it, is recognizing that it actually takes work. It takes work to break free of what you think you're supposed to be doing. Finding your voice takes work. It's much easier to try to be like everybody else and to try to create within the same paths that have been laid before you. Many people do that, and many people are successful doing that. But it's a lot of work to excavate your true voice. And maybe part of it is keeping blinders on. I don't think I do this very well. I'm very appreciative that you find my content refreshing, and it's something for me to continue to aspire to. But I don't always look at what I've put out, and I'm not yes, this is an authentic. It's not that it's inauthentic, but it's not a complete authentic expression of everything that's going on and everything that I think I can provide. A lot of people say you have to consume a lot to create. I think that consuming way less, and creating truly from the bubbles of your own brain, at least in the beginning, when you're trying to find your voice, is kind of important. It's not that I disagree with the advice to read everything, watch everything. I don't know if I hardcore disagree, but I don't know. Maybe it's you have to create with your blinders on, and then when you're editing or when you're refining, you can look around to see what's around you and then make sure that your voice is distinct from that. But it's really hard to be authentic when you're consuming more than you're allowing yourself to make. And the last question, Sometimes I feel like I have to turn my pain, sadness, grief, whatever into art. And I think that can take away from processing my feelings. I'm wondering if you can relate. I can relate. I can relate. I'm laughing because this has been like a huge, this question has been a huge thing for me over the last year as I've reflected on Hello Hayes and the advice column and where my advice comes from and why it's felt really hard for me to give advice in certain periods of my life, why it's felt hard when people don't like the advice I gave. Like, why do I react? Why do I feel so personal about it? And a big part of that is my advice and my desire in making Hello Hayes comes so deeply from wanting to make meaning from my suffering and wanting to give purpose to the pain that I've experienced, which is a really important thing to do in life. Like, not everybody feels this way, but I do firmly believe that, like, we all want meaning. We all want meaning. And I have found that the way through some of my suffering and some of my grief has been trying to find ways to make it mean something. And I think art can be a way to do that. There are limits of that, though. Like, there are limits. And this has been a question that I am actively thinking about in real time. Like, what are the limits of art? Can you make art? Can art help with pain? I find that turning my pain, sadness, grief into art actually does help me process my feelings. So when I actually make it, I am processing. But sometimes I've skipped the part of processing and I've tried to like rush through it so that I can get to meaning faster. But you can't rush that process. And I think that in times when I have created art too quickly out of pain, it has made me be way more attached to the outcome of the art in a really unhealthy way because I was trying to not feel the pain, essentially. Making art from your pain is for you. And I think that's something that I have really tried to sit with. Making art from my pain is for me. And when I remember that it's here to help me process, not here to help me eliminate the pain, like that, I don't want to say it's been a game changer because it's something that I'm still very much working through. And I might even delete this because it might feel too half-baked and too like raw right now. But that's where I'm currently at with that. And it's why, frankly, I have really pulled back making Hello Hayes the way I used to. And I don't know what the future's. I'm enjoying this right now, but you know that I'm not making. I haven't made a Hello Hayes TikTok video in. Has it been a year? It's been a long time, and this is all complicated, you guys. Back to not being an expert. Like, I'm not an expert. I'm a human being. I'm a human being like all of you. And I think the best artists are human beings. And I appreciate this question. I wish I had a better, more concise answer to it, but maybe there's something in what I said that can help spark, I don't know, your own journey in questioning. Like, why are you trying to make art out of your pain? Remember that it's for you. Remember it's there for you. Remember it's there for you. All right, before I completely twist my tongue and lose track of any words, I think that's a good spot to end for this week. I love you guys. I know that these creativity episodes are a little different than my normal kind of relationships content, but it's really meaningful for me to talk about. I love talking about this stuff, and I suspect that some of you are interested in it also, based on the fact that a bunch of you sent me questions. If you're not, next week we'll be back with another type of episode. Thanks for listening. New episodes every Tuesday. I love you guys, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. Talk to you soon. Bye.